The greatest person ever. Thank you. Thank you. It's so great to be back here with you on this Friday morning. Thank you for having me. Or consent. Yeah. Hypocrite. Hypocrite, hypocrite. Two reasons why hypocrite. And I have a totally different take on this situation. So I'll go forward to go backward. So the first piece is like, let's remember that Trudeau was accused of groping a young woman in BC 20 years ago. And that came forward. And yeah, and I don't seem to recall his offer to resign or to express, any real type of remorse. And so, for him to say, like, I feel like this is deeply disappointed. This is just him riding the wave of, I want to have something to say, but I don't want to be held accountable to what I say. I do think it's also very important to note that as the prime minister, he is in charge of the Canadian military, which, if we've been following that story as we have not been having a super great time. 700 women have come, 700 claims have come forward to say, I'm encountering a type of abuse within the military. These are people who are willing to die for this country and willing to make tremendous sacrifices, not just for themselves, but for their family. And I just think that this is just the epitome of, oh, I'm gonna ride the wave of wokeness, but please don't ask me any contextual questions because it starts to kind of come unbundled. Now that's the Trudeau piece, but I also wanna talk about this young man because I don't wanna be accused of what conservatives do, which is a failure to read the room and to pick the narrative in the right place. But you know, this this young boy, you're absolutely right, was charged and fined in Sweden for he had a sexual encounter with a woman and he took photos of her without her permission and then he shared it widely with his teammates and others. And that is disgusting. And that is wrong. Then the question becomes at 18, what happens to this young person, right? So he he did not fight the charges. He was found guilty, accepted his plea of guilty. He was fined. He paid the fine. He has expressed tremendous remorse for his actions. And then he said to the NHL, "Please do not draft me. I do not want this. I do not want this for a team. I do not want this for myself. I do not feel like this is right. It doesn't act in congruence with my values of remorse." Then the team drafts him, and I have seen tremendous vitriol, especially from women on social media to say, like, "He's everything that's wrong with sports." Let's put our ire in the right place. What this young man did is abhorrent and wrong. What the Montreal Canadiens did was exert power when they knew better and put everyone in a difficult position. And then what Trudeau did was apply, disaster capitalism, or really just like disaster. I don't know what the word is, like a way to capitalize on the tragedy for political play. All of that is not what Canada is. And that really does frustrate me, because the level of discourse and rhetoric that we have in this country really has to be made emblematic by the leader of this country, and choosing to say, you know what, this will earn me some fun points in Quebec, where I could use them by saying like, hey, I stand behind the wokeness of Quebec. I I just think, like, you have problems in your own house. Be impeccable with your word. Be a better leader than this. So I have kind of a thought where I'm like, we have two Michaels in China that you can't get out. We have a tremendous trade deficit. We have huge issues. I think we're losing our stature with the United States in terms of having a strong partnership. And the talking point that you choose for this morning is who should be playing sports in Canada for what team, on what moral laurels that you also don't have. I just think it's just incredibly misplaced. Live.
And things screw up from time to time because, that's the way the world works. There we go. No.
Just be on
There,
just be honest with me. You just put me on mute for that whole segment. You're just like, "Don't wanna hear it."
totally. That's exactly what I did. I apologize for my listeners right now. And hopefully, knock on wood, it seems to be recording on Zoom, but it is not showing up, which that's what I'm getting the information from people who are listening right now. But hey, it seems to be working. Let's continue on because it seems to be working now. I want to talk about the mainstream media in this whole narrative as well, because one of the things that I've seen and I'm hearing time and time again is, while Trudeau came out and did say what the Montreal Canadiens did was lack of judgment, the mainstream media didn't talk about the issues that he is surrounded by right now. And I think that's a failing on our
No, they
media
didn't.
part. And I believe that the media needs to step up their game because while, okay, what the Montreal Canadiens did was stupid, idiotic, and just plain dumb.
Unnecessary.
Exactly.
It was unnecessary.
What I will say though is, hey, Justin Trudeau needs to be held accountable as well. And he is not being held accountable. And people need to realize that the mainstream media needs to do a better job. I hope people will change the narrative. And I saw that Candice Bergen, the deputy leader of the Conservative Party, tried to do that in some tweets. She did start calling out some news organizations for saying, why aren't you addressing this as well along with this story? Because this is a bigger issue than just one kid doing something idiotic, criminal. It is a bigger issue around sexual misconduct in Canada. It is not just a one person issue. It is everyone's responsibility to fix this. So I give credit to the Conservatives for trying to address this issue, but I give also credit to the narrative that Justin Trudeau has been able to make around this issue of, hey, I'm making it about hockey and not myself, and I'm able to capitalize on this. I know it's the stupidest thing that he could have done, but it is how it's happened. Hope that we get to a point where he starts to be held accountable in more ways than one. The next area I want to
Agreed.
talk about, and this is the big one that I did not know a lot about before talking about it, and before you mentioned it to me in our tweets, our back and forth tweets every week, but Saudi Arabia, Saudi Arabia, Saudi Arabia, Saudi Arabia. Canada is selling arms to this country who is in the middle of a war with a neighboring country of Yemen. And I wanted to do a little bit of a dive into it, and I want you to explain a little bit about it because you are the one that brought this to my attention, so you're the best to explain it, and then I'll give my opinion. So go ahead, Jen. If you haven't noticed, the first 10 minutes of the show is going to be the hypocrite show.
about a size. People. We are providing weapons to a country engaged in terrible human rights violations. If you followed the events of Jamal Khashoggi, you know that they will do anything to assert their type of power. They are in armed conflict with Yemen. It's important to note that we cannot just say, oh, but these types are being used for good things. Are we crazy? 99% of the permit applications for these weapons are being approved.
I
It's a
gotta
perfect
I
approval
gotta
rating.
talk about the elephant in the room on this issue because when I did my research on this and I looked into where the arms sales were going and who was doing the arms sales, I looked at also who was against the arms sales. And the EU is one of the biggest organizations in the area, and they are against any sales to Saudi Arabia during a war.
Yes.
But when you look
Yes.
at who is also selling arms to Saudi Arabia, because this is the telltale sign. Well, Canada is a bad player on the national stage on this issue. The UK, Italy are also
Oh
selling
yeah. No,
arms.
we're not. Yeah, we're not
Exactly.
alone. And it's important to note that this is what's happening at the PMO. This is the Prime Minister's. Is it, it's economic. It's a trade deal of $14 billion. That's a sizable amount. Like, don't forget, we're a country that doesn't manufacture anything. We don't, provide. We have raw materials, but we don't provide finished goods anywhere. As if you've ever, like, if you follow Bombardier like I do, because I would like to have gray hair as soon as possible. You know that we try really hard there, but we can't build ships, we can't build planes. Like, it really is difficult for us to be in the business of selling a finished good. So you can see that there's a $14 billion contract on the line here, and the trade-off is we do this at the cost of understanding that, yes, we have an economic benefit. It's a job creator, it's a job provider, but this veneer of, like, be okay with it because we have a checks and balance system is such a high level of bullshit. And we should not be buying that. We should understand that by doing this, we accept that these weapons could be used in nefarious ways, to provide real harm.
So so I love this story because I don't love the story of the actual nature of the story, but the information
Chris.
that I learned about arms sales and a little bit more about where our weapons are going, I found it quite interesting, and I found this number staggeringly surprising. But in 2019, Canada sold the United States 5,102 tasers to the United States. Okay, understandable. Yet again, Saudi Arabia is probably a bad country that I'll probably never ever go to ever in my life. But the United States, we are selling weapons to them to potentially harm their own people. Because if you look at the report by the arms treaty, armstradetreaty.org, you can look at where every single one of our arms deals went to. And I was surprised at how many are actually going to the United States as well. Saudi Arabia, Netherlands, Belgium for some reason. I don't know why Belgium needs
Mm-hmm.
some weapons, but what is going on in this world when Canada, peacekeeping country, which Trudeau ran on in 2015, hey, we're going to be up front, we're going to be the peace treaty country, has now started becoming the gun runners of sort of North America, but also the Middle East. What's going on with our world? And like you said, it is a hypocritical stance for the government to say we are fun-loving, peacekeeping country while we're selling, whether it be just light armors vehicles, to countries that are killing other countries. But yet again, the U.S. can't say anything because they're selling to other countries as well. So Canada has to be upfront with people and say, you know what, we might not have the best track record when it comes to arms sales to countries that might be using it to kill their own people.
Yeah, but like I'm saying, don't give it the veneer that there's a checks and balance that isn't there, right? Like that to me feels the most just disassociated and disheartening. I think that's the worst part for me. And while you're doing all of this, you're destroying your military at home. You're making it an unwelcoming place. Like it's just it starts to compound itself and it becomes deeply disappointing.
I will say that yet again, diving into this a little bit more deeper and a little bit more policy, but out of the $4 billion that we did sell in 2019, 76% of that $4 billion went to Saudi Arabia. 76% of our arms sales went to Saudi Arabia. I didn't realize we were that close with them, but hey, we have now changed. I could not find information about Stephen Harper's time during his time, if we were selling arms to Saudi Arabia at that time or other countries, because we had just signed this pact of being open and transparent with the people in 2019. So I would love to know. I tried to do a little bit of dive into that, but I couldn't find it as much as I was able to find what Justin Trudeau has fallen down on, and being the woke person he is, according to him. It is great to see.
But I think we can assume that this is not we know to be true that this is not a new thing. We've been selling arms to other countries for a long time. I think the problem that we have now is that we have this artificial veneer that it's,
You love the word veneer, don't you? You used it in every week episode that we have had. Veneer.
But that's it. Yes. Please tweet me. I've actually gotten that feedback before. But that is, to me, when I look at this prime minister, that is the challenge that I have, is that there is this presentation of it being, this flashy something, and then right behind it, it's not genuine. It's not authentic. It's not. There's always a narrative. Once you start to align all your facts, you're like, this is not what it is presented to be. It just becomes so, when we look at increasing public trust and confidence in the political process and in political leadership, you just think these are so many movements and pivots that don't help us in the long run. It's built on a false premise. It's veneer. That's the only word I can think of.
Before we move into our next segment, I do want to throw this in here because Justin Trudeau was accused of being a hypocrite by our current premier of Alberta, Jason Kenney. I let Jen know that I was going to talk about this, but I didn't tell her when it was going to be talked about. But yesterday, as we saw, Justin Trudeau came out with 5 new appointments to the upper chamber, the Red Chamber, Senate. And in that, we have 2 vacancies in Alberta. Justin Trudeau filled 1. He filled it with Banff, or former Banff, because she resigned her post like literally 2 minutes after the press release came out. Banff Mayor Karen Sorensen. This riled up the conservative right. Erin O'Toole put out a press release, because that's what we do when we're pissed off at people now. We put out press releases. Erin O'Toole put something out. I was going to say Jamie Kennedy, but Jason Kenney put out a press release via Twitter, which I still don't understand why we're doing that anymore, but I guess we need to take a screenshot of the press release and put it on Twitter. Were you as pissed off as a conservative as the right is portraying that they're pissed off that Justin Trudeau constitutionally is allowed to fill these vacancies?
Yeah. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah,
really?
I don't. Okay. Yeah. Sorry. I just, everybody gird your loins as I say that I endorse Kenny's outrage on this, because the vision that Kenney wanted, and you have the ability to work with, you do have the ability to work within the system. I appreciate that this is a constitutional right, but the ability to say we as a province would like to do this like the way we do the Academy Awards. We're going to do the Oscars now, where Albertans choose their nominees, and then those nominees are brought for consideration. It was seen as an olive branch to say, let us have a say in who is chosen to represent us. And for the prime minister just to say hard pass, like hard pass, I think it really, really certainly does demonstrate that there is no willingness to work together. And I know that that happens on both sides, but it really, this whole situation just really raises the flag for me that this idea that senators are chosen by the governor general on the advice of the prime minister, why can we as Canadians not elect our senators? Why because they play a role in the process of helping policy ideas become the law of the land, why can we not as Canadians elect them? What is it about us that it has been decided that we are not capable of doing this? I mean, I appreciate that we're following the British model, and we're part of the Commonwealth, and that's fine. But we've seen pivots even in American history where it's been vitally important for senators to be elected in part of the process. Let me not conflate my words. Let me be impeccable with them. I am very happy for Miss Sorensen. I'm very happy for Karen. She's been a wonderful mayor for Banff, and I'm sure she will have a very articulate voice in the Senate. But this is a job that she did not campaign for, that she has a lot of power to ascertain. And at the end of the day, why, when Alberta is looking so much for its voice to be found within this, between this confederation setup, could we not just have had this, an opportunity for Albertans to say, in conjunction with the municipal election, here's some people that I would like for Senate consideration. I like this person. I like this person. First of all, it involves us more as citizens in our own constitutional process and our own electoral process. Like, there was no harm here in allowing the process to unfold to say, and I would have even have accepted if we would have produced a list and had the opportunity as citizens to speak, and then even the prime minister saying, no, thanks, I'm going with Karen and Banff.
Well,
I just
the thing
just
that I
think,
found quite interesting. Sorry, I'm not trying to interrupt, but I want to point this out because I want to make sure people know there are two vacancies. There are two vacancies that he could have filled. He only filled one. Grant Mitchell resigned in January. The former Senator Elaine McCoy passed away earlier this year as well. There was two vacancies that he could have filled, but he only chose to fill one. So hypothetically, he can still say, hey, I'm waiting for that first name. Whoever you guys choose, we'll put in the Senate. But he only filled one.
he's not going to do that.
But I want to make sure
that he's going to say, I'm just waiting my time and then I'm going to fill the other one. Like, no way. He's not going. And then what do we have? We have a system where that makes it a more dysfunctional system. We have some that are elected, like some are chosen by Albertans, but some are not. This is ridiculous. And this is how dysfunctional this has gotten, because this is not the right way forward. The right way forward is for Canadians to elect their senators.
Well,
Come on, tell me you agree with that.
I don't.
Tell me you agree with that.
I don't.
What?
I do not.
Crazy.
I do not, because I stopped believing in that when the conservative senators that Harper appointed said that they were going to be there for 8 years and then lasted longer than 8 years. If you want to be transparent, if conservatives want to talk about the upper chamber reform, they better follow through with their words. And that's my own personal opinion. If the conservatives want to change the Senate, which they say they want to, all those senators who were appointed under Harper, who said I was only going to be there for 8 years, who are still there 15 years later, need to step down. And then I will get behind the elected Senate, because right now,
but that's crazy. Crazy. That's crazy, Chris, because if you're going to elect senators, then you will elect them on a term. Like, that's crazy. That's like saying because the system's already broken, we can't fix it. And don't let a few bad apples ruin the whole batch. Like, yeah, they were not honest to their word, and that's wrong. But if you're going to elect senators, there's no way you're going to elect them to a lifetime appointment. You're going to elect them on an electoral cycle.
We have our first comment via YouTube as we're live streaming this, and it's from a Green Party of Canada candidate for Calgary Centre, Austin Mullins, who says, or we should just abolish the Senate altogether. Do you think we should?
No.
Why not?
No, we don't. No, I don't. First of all, can I just say, like, I think Austin's going to run a great campaign in Calgary Center. I can't wait to see how he's going to get young people mobilized on some great energy. If he can get some great innovative policy solutions, man, I'm really excited to watch this kid run. So go get it, Austin. Okay.
I
Um,
think you just clipped out a part of YouTube for him so he can put it up on Twitter and social media. So continue
yeah,
on.
conservative like me host endorses Green Party candidate will be the headline of that. No, I just think he's run a great he's had great energy. He's just kind of been on everyone's radar. So I'm excited to see that. And seeing younger people get involved in the federal political process makes me always excited. Um,
Abolish the Senate.
no. So yeah, right. So for me, I'll just use the example of medical assistance in dying. When they went to go pass Bill C7, which is the second iteration, the further entrenchment of MAID in our social construct, the Senate was instrumental in a looking at the bill and looking at the amendments and kind of breaking it into parts. And I think the best level of discourse and dialogue that we had about MAID in this country occurred at the senatorial level. There was real due diligence at that level. I was very, very impressed. And I think that, you know, for them to look at that bill and say, okay, aside from the hyperbole and the emotion, you know, here's what we're looking at, and we're going to make these modifications, and we're going to send this bill back down to the House to have another vote on it. And I think at the end of the day, what we got was a really, really great Bill C7 that, with the exception of a few special interest groups, made everybody pretty happy about the future momentum of a very pioneering piece of legislation. So I just see the Senate as being this place to say, whoa, 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 whoa. Let's just unpack this. Let's just unpack this legislation and this bill, and let's have real dialogue. So I don't think it should be abolished. I think it's a nice check and balance for us, but I do think the people in there should be selected by the citizens and not by the prime minister alone. I think that that's too much of an overreach of power.
Yet again, we could talk about this for about 20 hours, because yet again, I will be up front here. The Senate is not picked by, well, technically it is on the advice of the Prime Minister, but he has appointed a special committee to vet names.
Oh, stop it.
Anyone
Stop
can
it.
apply.
It's who he
I
wants.
applied for a
Stop it.
Senate position.
This is the arms deal all over again. Don't worry. There's a permit application and we won't sell any. There's still 100% of these permits going through. Like, don't buy that. Don't buy that.
I want to turn to more local issues now, because while it's great that we can talk about federal politics for the first 29 minutes of the show, provincial, it seems like the Conservatives are trying to change the narrative around a lot of things right now. And earlier last week, we were going to talk about this last week, but we decided to push it back just to see what was going to transpire with it. The Justice Minister of Alberta, Casey Madhu, decided that he was going to put out a press release via a open letter to Bill Barr, the I forget his actual ministry's position, but Bill Barr, public safety. That's right, Ralph Goodale's old ministry. And Justin Trudeau saying, hey, Albertans want to carry pepper spray. We believe that Albertans need to feel safe, and in order to feel safe, they should be able to carry pepper spray. Please change the laws to allow that to happen. You are shaking your head for the people who are listening to this on an audio version. I was disgusted by this, because all we need is more Batmen running around and Supermen and freaking vigilantes running around with pepper spray, spraying people. How do you hold people account? From the Conservatives' perspective, and I'll throw it over to you here. Were you appalled by this as much as Albertans were when they read this open letter?
I wasn't appalled. I was just frustrated. I'm just frustrated. So if you listen to my podcast, Conservative Like Me, you know that I talk about good policy has three arms to it. It has to be technically correct, operationally implementable, and it has to have good political will. Let's unpack those three. Political will, was there like a whole public consultation that I missed from Albertans where we all talked about how much we all want to carry pepper spray? Like, where's the data that this is what we want? Like, what did we actually really want? Was it more policing? Was it more community policing? Was it safer streets? Was it better lighting? Like, what was the real thing that we wanted that the UCP decided, no, we can give them this and this will somehow satisfy it? So political will matters here. Ottawa is never going to go for this. Let's just be totally honest. And of all the hills you have to die on between Alberta and Ottawa, this is what you picked. Are you nuts? Are you nuts?
So what was
And the other thing
what
is
was their political move then? What was their political move here?
I
Because
don't,
I can't read into this because Senate equalization, I understand those issues. Pepper spray? Like
I don't know if it's like the veneer of safety. I don't know. See, there's veneer again. I don't know if it's the false presentation of safety. I just don't know. I just can't, like, it's not like normally when you would see something like this appear from Madhu's office, you'd think we've been sort of on the trail of this dialogue, but this really came out of nowhere. So back to my three things. So that's political will. And then on the operationally implementable, I just would like to remind people listening at home that if people who fear for their safety can carry pepper spray, so can the bad guys.
What?
Like, we just all carry pepper. So can they. Exactly. I just think we kind of forget about that. And it's important to note that the Alberta police chiefs are dead set against this idea. They believe that there will be a whole host of unintended consequences, and their expertise and their data is saying this is a bad pivot, this is bad policy. And I think when you don't have that group in your corner, and they're kind of a qualified group to have their opinion, I think you've got real trouble. But the biggest issue of this policy is the technical correctness. What is this policy trying to solve? If we have an issue of public safety or a concern of public safety, maybe even if the data isn't there, this is not the solution. This is not the solution. You need so I just feel like this is just so ridiculous. This is so ridiculous. It's a policy solution that fails on all three levels, that Ottawa is going to say no. And I don't know if this is just them trying to build more power to be able to say, see, Ottawa doesn't listen to us. I just don't understand this request to amend the criminal code and what it's aspiring to do. But I think that this is very anti-Albertan. I don't get this at all.
When I first read the letter, and this was for like about 20 minutes afterwards, because I tried to figure out what the political game is here, right? Because there's nothing happens in politics without a end goal. An end game has to be something. For like a brief 20 minutes, I kept on thinking to myself, is this the Conservatives trying, or the UCP trying to introduce open carry? And this was my concern. Is it, hey, we need to feel safe, we need to start putting pepper spray in people's arm. Next step, years down the line, people being able to carry handguns. So that, like, for a brief moment, and I could be the only one in the room here that thought this, but it was my look of, is this potentially opening up a bigger can of worms of potentially arming our citizens to make them feel safe? Because the UCP are very much in favor of protecting property rights and protecting landowners and ensuring that rural homeowners are protected and well served, and feeling like if they have intruders, they potentially have the right to harm the intruder if they feel unsafe. So for a brief moment, and this could be just me, I'm not sure if anyone else, please send me messages so that way I don't feel like I'm a lonely island here. But that's where I went with the whole conversation.
I'm not sure if this is trying to set precedent or not. To be fair, the thought didn't even cross my mind. I wish that they would be more transparent with Albertans around what the goal is here. But
we are. I hope, like you say, I don't expect it to be introduced. I don't expect the Liberals in Ottawa to change the laws, but weirder things have happened, so who knows?
Yeah, no, I fully expect Ottawa to send back a note that says,
just
too
a
long,
big
didn't read.
NO, period.
Yeah. Hard pass. Hashtag hard pass.
While we are on the topic of progressive, or the United Conservative Party, I want to talk about Elections Alberta here for a second, because earlier this week, I think actually Wednesday this week, they came down with one of their two reports from the last federal provincial election, around MLA Devinder Tour, the Calgary Falcon Ridge MLA for the UCP. He was slapped with a $15,000 fine, and his CFO during the last election as well was slapped with a fine. I think it was close to 15,000. I think it was like 14,500. 10 violations.
Together
of the...
it's
Go ahead.
Together it's 33. Together it's 33,500. Together, 33,500. All in.
Yeah. Mr. Tour was slapped with 10 violations of the Elections Act for illegal financing of his election. He was accepting donations from a numbered company that he was a director of at one time. The NDP have been calling for him to resign now. This was one of the closest, if not the closest, ridings in the last provincial election, with 96 votes between him and the NDP. This brings into the question, and I think this is why there's a lot of outrage around the Senate right now, of the kamikaze leadership candidate that ran against Brian Jean and Doug Schweitzer and Jason Kenney for the leadership of the UCP. From a conservative perspective, what do you think of what just happened and what this outcome has started a narrative around election finances in the Conservatives, or is it just a one-off issue and Mr. Tour just needs to go away in the next election?
I'm not going to play party politics on this. I'm going to apply the same rules to, sorry to disappoint you. I'm going to clutch my pearls. I'm going to play fairness, open and transparent elections and campaigns that follow the rules are paramount. I don't care who you're affiliated with. The campaign system, the campaign finance system is complicated, but there's no excuse not to know the rules. So it's driving a car, and yet we all do it and follow the rules, right? It's part of the job. I do believe, and I'm well on the record, that I think that there should be a standing order that if Elections Alberta or Elections Canada, if we're looking at a federal level, can find a case for foul play because you did not follow the rules, you should be subject to removal. Sorry, you should be subject to removal. Full stop. I believe that on everything. That this is about public trust and confidence. If you don't play by the rules, and there's no excuse for, I didn't know, right? You have a financial agent for a reason. If you run afoul to the public trust and confidence in the election, you're done. You're out. The seat sits open until the next election. And I appreciate that former Deputy Premier Thomas Lukaszuk said, I pulled up this tweet. It said, if cheating in an election was a criterion for removing a UCP MLA from the Alberta caucus, you'd be missing a leader, several cabinet ministers, and a bunch of backbenchers. And there is a thought that this is a systemic problem within the UCP. I've seen other political parties that struggle with this, but I think the truth of the matter is that there are rules. You follow the rules. If you don't follow the rules, there are consequences, and those consequences should be far more severe than a fine. Because then you're going to have campaigns who are going to say, no problem. It was worth the 91. It was worth the 91 votes that we got to pay the $33,000 fine.
Yeah, I just want to just piggyback on the finance issues right now. Yesterday, financial reporting came out from the two major parties, and this has nothing to do with Devinder Tour, the MLA for Calgary Falcon Ridge, but this has to do with just politics in general. The NDP doubled the UCP's fundraising ability in yesterday's numbers. I was shocked at that. I think that tells a narrative, but also at the same time, we're still 2 years out from an election, so I would not put anything into money because money does not vote. So there's my 2 cents on that one. And because I want to make sure we get to this last one, because I feel like this one's going to be the big one for the day, and this is going to be the long conversation that we're going to be having. So do you have anything about fundraising I want to talk about before I move on, or no?
Listen, I never want to talk about fundraising, but I think that there should be rules, and I will be very disappointed if Mr. Tour's defense of this $33,500 claim is, I didn't know. I have no time for that, and I hope that whoever runs against him in the next election gives him, no pun intended, a run for his money.
Okay. Now, this has been a news story that we have been following semi-closely for the last few weeks. We've wanted to talk about it, I think, in the very first episode of the show, but we decided to hold off because we wanted to learn a little bit more about it. Winnipeg. We're going to put ourselves into Winnipeg, and I never thought I would ever say that. Yet again, we're talking about hockey. We're talking about Winnipeg. Here we are. It's a strange world in 2021, and we're almost in August. Two scientists were removed from a lab in Winnipeg at the beginning of the pandemic. Both credentials were pulled. This is a highly classified, highly secured lab. Opposition wants to know why this was happening, and the government is dragging its heels on releasing any information. They're fighting in court to not release the documents of why these two scientists were removed. And actually, if I'm not mistaken, and Jennifer probably knows a little bit better than I do, but the Liberals are bringing a Liberal speaker to court to stop the release of these documents. I think it's the first time in history that the speaker has been sued by his own party, but also by the government to stop the release of documentation. I tried to learn a little bit about some backstory about this. The only report that I could find was from CBC, because I do not subscribe to the Globe and Mail. And I know people who are watching are saying, why are you listening to the CBC? They're government-run organization, so on and so forth. But a third-party source told the CBC that they spoke to the two scientists, and the two scientists says it's all a misunderstanding. They don't know why their credentials were pulled to this highly classified, secure lab in Winnipeg. And one scientist is claimed to have traveled to Wuhan to set up a lab in the area that the COVID-19 virus started. So there is our introduction to this, and I probably did a shitty job doing it, but Jennifer probably will be able to explain a little bit better if I missed something. Jennifer, from your perspective, what the heck is going on in Winnipeg, and why is the government being so secretive, do you believe?
What is going on in Winnipeg? What is going on in Ottawa? That's the big question that I have is, yes, okay, so two scientists, a husband and a wife, working in a lab in Winnipeg, as you said, suddenly removed and it's important to note that CSIS was part of this. Like there's a CSIS element to this, so there was something nefarious going on. So the rhetoric of there's some misunderstanding that happened, there was some intel that informed the dismissal of them. And then at the same time, we had an infectious disease outbreak. So the issue here, let's be very clear, the issue here is that something happened in Winnipeg, and Canadians have a right to know what it was, period, full stop. This is, and yet what we're doing here is we're playing politics, because there are incredible lengths. I've never seen anything like it. Incredible lengths that the Liberal government is going to not to release that documentation. Things are so heavily redacted. Questions are not being answered in Parliament. Now we're seeing, the Speaker being sued. You're absolutely right. The Speaker being sued of his own party not to release the information. They're going to take it through the judicial system. They're trying to hold it up. What happened in that Winnipeg lab is not to the discretion or secrecy of the government. It is to be disclosed to Canadians. And if a case there's no case that you can make here. Why can't we get that information?
I'm going to play devil's advocate for a second, because I'm in the same position you are. I believe that the information should be released. If this is for national security, release the information, or give us some indication of why these people were removed. You don't need to tell us the full story if you don't want to, but tell us why they were removed. Was it espionage? Was it this, that, or the other? The issue that I have right now, and this is where I don't want to say I'm favoring the government on this issue, is I'm wondering if something has to do with the two Michaels. I know this is probably few and far between, but I'm looking at this as a Canada-China relationship issue. These two people, the wife was accused of going to China and setting up a lab in Wuhan, like I stated. Does this have anything to do with the two Michaels? I know we have other issues with Hawaii and Hawaii, or however you want to pronounce it, and that whole issue. But I want to be extra cautious about what is released to the public, because sometimes when you release information, it can be misconstrued, it can be changed, it can be taken out of context. So I want to be sure that what the information is released by the government, and I know the government is not the best keeper of what information should be put out to the public, but I want to make sure that the information that's put out to the public is the correct information and is actually going to be used in an appropriate manner and not taken out of context, like I said. And this is where I stand on this. Go ahead.
Respectfully, bullshit. Counterpoint is twofold. Number one, you send Meng home, which we do these trades all the time. You send Meng home, and you're going to get the two Michaels back.
Nope.
We do these kind of backdoor trades all the time. We are holding Meng because the U.S. president, who is no longer in power, asked us to do so and put us in a ridiculous position of no success. You send Meng home, you get the two Michaels back, and the world carries on.
I will have
for the United States. The United States won't do anything about it.
I'm going to defend Justin Trudeau on this one. If the moment you do a swap prisoner for prisoner, Canadians get a target on their back. Canadians now become political.
No way. We do these kind of trades all the time. You act like this is the only time something like this has happened. We do these kind of trades all the time. Meng is a high collateral target. And look at, like, we did this for the United States, and now the United States is like, we don't care. Joe Biden couldn't even
probably pronounce the name like whatever. I did.
Yeah, exactly. He'd be like that Hawaii thing, and like he doesn't care. Yeah, first of all, so don't conflate it. But the other piece of this is, like, this is us guessing. Like, oh, there must be some justification. There is no justification here, and this, it really revealed itself this week, because there was a great piece in Maclean's magazine where they, working with the Globe and Mail, released a preliminary document or a brief from CSIS that they had done a lot of outreach to universities in the year of 2020, and released to the government and then publicly that they believe that universities could be potential targets for international espionage, because there's such free and open sharing and such collaboration between universities, and they reached out to 230 Canadian research universities and coordinated industrial groups coordinated industry groups. And, they personally briefed more than 2,000 individuals and said, we think that there are potential threats to Canadian research being shared with other countries. We believe China to be chiefly among them. This is a threat, and that threat was openly shared with Canadians, and we were able to digest that. And you and I are able to talk about it on the podcast. There are talking points about what happened in Winnipeg, and we're being kept from them because the Prime Minister is choosing to do so. If there is a security argument to be made, then make that argument.
I will agree on that. And that's where I think we need to go. If Justin Trudeau believes, and if Bill Barr and Harjit Sand, the defense minister, and Marc Garneau, the foreign affairs minister, believe that there's a security issue that needs to be addressed, that needs to be the reason why we are not releasing this information, tell us what that security information is. Do not try to back people into a corner. And I'm going to say, I say this with all relevance, but the Conservatives are not winning this issue either. They are dropping the ball on this issue. And yet again, I'm going back to the political issue because that's what I like to do, because politics, yet again, everything happens in politics for a reason. The Conservatives must know something, because they have that secret committee that meets to talk about security issues in CSIS. But if the Conservatives aren't attacking the Trudeau government on this issue every day, it's a failed opportunity. And the longer we don't, they are losing the narrative, and they're going to lose potentially. Well, I think they're still going to lose the next election, but they need to start attacking. And the NDP need to smarten up and actually get down to business and say, okay, you know what? Release the information. If all the freaking parties got together and said, yes, let's release the information, or Justin Trudeau, get Jagmeet Singh, Erin O'Toole, Annamie Paul. I'm going to throw her in there first for sake of transparency, and the leader of the Bloc party, get them in a room and say, okay, this is the reason, this is why we're not releasing it. If you can tell the leaders, go for it, but do something and tell us why you're not releasing it. Don't just sue for the sake of suing.
Well, I think you're absolutely right that for conservatives this is a wedge issue on public trust and confidence. This is an issue on transparency, and if there's an issue of public safety, if there's something, I mean, if it is really serious, then brief the other leaders and let them manage it as an issue of public safety. But I just think that this is what Trudeau has done, especially in his last mandate, which is I can govern from the PMO, and if you don't like it, you can suck it.
He's trying to take a page out of Stephen Harper's book, but Stephen Harper did it much better and was able to do it a lot easier and smoother, because Justin Trudeau seems to trip over, I don't know, a stick if he was walking.
Yeah, I just think that the prime minister he does it with the it's just more disingenuous. Like I think with Stephen Harper, love it or loathe it, you knew what it was. I think that the problem here with the prime minister is that, and I'm coming all the way back to the beginning, which is that it gives you the impression that it's one thing when it really is the other. And I just think that that lack of authenticity should disqualify you from being the current prime minister or
we
future
have
prime
five
minister.
we have 5 minutes left in the show, and yet again we could probably talk about Wuhan for a while, and I feel like we didn't even talk about Wuhan. We started with Wuhan, then we went to a completely different narrative of us arguing about prisoner trades and all this stuff. That's the way the world works.
Yeah,
And
I
that's
can't believe how wrong you are.
I can't believe how wrong you are. I can't
No, you are
believe
wrong on this.
you are willing to put a target on every Canadian's back who says, I don't agree with something that the Canadian government is doing, so I'm going to capture one of their, or I'm going to imprison one of their citizens because they did something wrong. That's my opinion. That's my last word on it. Go ahead. Your last word on it as well.
You're wrong. You're wrong. What do you want to? Can we talk about the election call?
That's
Can we
what we're about
talk about the
to.
election?
We're going to transition to that for the last 5 minutes. I am not on the Conservative Party fundraiser list. I'm not on the mailing list for the Conservative Party of Canada, but
I am.
a certain other person on the show is. She had told me that the Conservatives had sent out a fundraising letter saying, hey, we have a leaked email from the Liberal Party of Canada saying the Liberals need to have campaign offices ready and going for August and September, if I'm not mistaken, correct? You actually probably explain this. You can explain this a lot better than I can, because I don't get the emails you do. Go ahead, Jen. Explain to the audience what this is about.
No, you totally got it. There was I've really been stepping up and getting a lot of fundraising emails from the Conservative Party of Canada, and they had one that said we have leaked information that the Liberal Party is telling their candidates to buy offices for 2 months, the months of August and September. And I followed that with great interest, and then I started to see certain political insiders or people who seem to be very good at guessing, probably better than you and I, talking about going to the polls on the 13th of September. Now, I'm well on the record that I think that that's too.
Oh, hold on.
You okay?
I'm 90% sure in their second episode, I said September 16th.
No, I was there. And I think it's still too early. It's going to be too difficult to campaign in August. But I mean, it's I don't know. I'm also starting to hear from Liberal candidates who know that I don't like the Conservative candidate or the Conservative MP in certain ridings. So, that's picked up and that's piqued my interest. I'm still not sure that the 13th is the date. But I did start to think about it in a way that I hadn't thought about it before, which is you do have to think about it from a resource perspective. Like you're not going to have an election on like the 4th or the 5th, because you're absolutely right. You're going to have a campaign office. That's an expenditure that you only need for 4 days that you're going to pay for the entire month. So I've started to think about this in a far more pragmatic manner. Like when would the election be if we consider election spending?
I'm going to win a steak dinner here in the great ward of Ward 10 of Calgary, which Jennifer and I have a bet that when this election is going to be called. I have also talked to my Liberal friends, my Liberal candidates in other parts of the province and other parts of the country, which after you sent me this email, I asked them point blank, hey, there's a lot of campaign offices happening in the second week of August, and I'm very shocked about that. And I would be very much surprised that if an election doesn't get called the week of the Nova Scotia election. So August 16th, that would be an interesting week to call an election, have that happen. The issue here in Calgary, in Alberta, is municipal elections are happening. People are going to be politicaled out, and they do not want a federal election, a municipal election, a Senate election, and referendums on a swat of things when we're having a federal when with so much politics. I think there's going to be voter apathy, and I think a lot of people aren't going to go out. On the second note,
But what,
fourth wave. I want to make sure we get that. Delta variant is coming. I know you were shaking your head. I know we had talked about if the stampede becomes a breeding ground of COVID-19, then we have issues, but it didn't. But I think we still have to talk about the elephant in the room, because there are still provinces, and Alberta is the unique entity in this whole thing, that are still in lockdown, that are still telling people don't go out. Yes, we are we're relaxing COVID-19 restrictions, but there are still provinces who are still suffering from this. So I want Justin Trudeau to be prepared that if he goes to an election, there could be a potential fourth wave. And I don't want to say that because I really hope we don't have one, that it could affect his chances at the polls. Go ahead.
I mean, I'm nodding my head. I'm agreeing with you on potential peaks in COVID and what that could mean for keeping people from the polls. Important to note, the group of people that it would most likely keep from the polls are people who would vote conservative. So there's a little bit of playing of politics there. The other thing I think is you're going to have incredibly low voter turnout for this. There's no excitement left. I think you're going to have just a dismal result in terms of who's going to go to the polls. I think when you look at the position that Alberta's in with big municipal elections, I think let's remember what we learned with the Senate appointment of Karen Sorensen. Trudeau doesn't care. He doesn't care. This is a battleground for conservatives, and he doesn't care. He's going to try to push some momentum in Edmonton, but other than that, if this creates a political fatigue for Calgary and Edmonton as they have to select really a brand new municipal infrastructure, I don't think the Prime Minister cares. I don't think he cares.
No, I don't either. I will say that the Liberals are seeming to throw a lot of money and a lot of star power into Calgary Skyview. In the last few weeks, they've had they had the Prime Minister in the riding. They had Minister of Transportation in the riding yesterday. They had the Minister of Environment down here. The councillor for Ward 5, George Chahal, is our guest on Tuesday, so tune in for that. But also, he is the candidate for the Liberals, and they seem to be looking at winning back that seat because it looks like a potential winnable seat for them. Calgary Centre is a bit of a uphill battle, but Sabrina Grover, who was on the show earlier this week, or actually yesterday, she is the candidate there. So I think the Liberals are looking at those two ridings, but yet again, it is a uphill battle. The political narrative that Jason Kenney can spin if the Liberals do win a majority is, hey, those referendum issues that we want, you need to get out and vote on October 18th for those, because we need to send a clear message to Justin Trudeau. If you have a majority, we're not going to take it anymore. So that's my final word on that. What's yours?
Exactly. Same.
Okay. The last area I want to talk about, and I know it's 9:00, and I just want to make sure that we do get this in. Pierre Poilievre. Pierre! Good old Pierre. Pierre likes to do his videos. Pierre is running his leadership campaign in the middle of a not really sure if we're in the 44th general election. Does this hurt Erin O'Toole with Pierre being more vocal than he has in the last few months? And he is out there. He is on social media. He is a fundraising machine. He is able to pull in the money left, right, and center. Erin O'Toole needs to sit him down and potentially say, okay, we need to win the next election. You need to stop thinking about your own personal future. Do you agree?
First of all, Erin O'Toole hurts Erin O'Toole. First of all, we look to this leader for inspiration and direction and drive and passion and great policy ideas and things that we can get excited about. That buck falls on him. I do think that Pierre is looking at the piece about what I would call political maintenance, which is the idea that it's I wonder if you can hear my dog barking. My dog is psycho and he's barking probably at his own reflection right now. What can I say? He's a conservative also. And what I think Pierre is trying to do is what I would call political maintenance, which is the ability to say to the party, it's going to be okay. right? There's still going to be power left when we don't win this next election. I think he is reading the tea leaves. And I think, honestly, if Erin O'Toole sat him down and said, quit it because we're trying to win this election, I think Pierre would just say, like, pound sand. Like, I'm going to do what I want to do for my riding. And he does have more power, like institutional power within the party than the leader does. And we've seen that happen before with every political party. So it's not like, oh my goodness, what is he going to do with all these outliers? Other parties have always had other superstars. We see it not only just in our own Canadian context, but around the world. The problem with Pierre is that while he does have great lines of messaging on you can't afford this government, we're headed to a fault line, he comes up short on the innovation part around like solutions and why people should be excited for him as a potential future leader. The angry white politician is not going to fly in this country. We're just not socially constructed that way. We just can't get enough people to the polls based on their anger or their fear or their ire. There has to be the aspirational piece as well. Conservatives will continue to be held out so long as that aspirational piece remains elusive to them. The other thing that gets my attention on Mr. Poilievre is this piece, which is he seems to only want it when he thinks he can get it. I want to elect a conservative politician that wants it because the time was right. When Andrew Scheer was running, it was the time was right to make a leadership change. Andrew Scheer certainly was not the guy to do it. I'm well on the record that I was asked to run in the party under Scheer and said no. But Pierre has waited until there's a better chance for him to be elected at the cost of Canadians' well-being. When the debt, when the decisions around short-term lending, when we were going to have a real problem, and he believes that he can beat Trudeau. Now he wants to run, right? Remember what he said when he didn't run? He said, I have a young family. This would affect them. He still has a young family. He
Well,
still has
and
a
he
young
was
family. So
going
what
to
has
run.
changed?
He was going to run. There was wide no knowledge that he was going to announce
he
his.
was seen as the front runner. You're absolutely right. He was absolutely right, seen as the front runner. So what happened then that it's different now? And I keep thinking that what's different now is that he knows there's a greater chance to win. And you shouldn't want to run when you know you can win. You should want to run when you know that it's the time where you can provide the most help. And that ship sailed. In the last election was the time that Conservatives needed to step up and say, this is going to get really cantankerous if we don't put the right candidate forward. But instead there was this idea that let's wait for him to fail a little bit more. But what that really says to Canadians is let's put you in an even more disadvantaged position because we want to do political play. I don't like that.
Yeah, I want to get this in because I want to ask this question from a conservative perspective. While Pierre Poilievre is doing his thing, we had earlier this week, and I did not give you knowledge of this, so I apologize, but it's something that has been on the top of my mind. Stephen Harper sat down with a podcast down in Texas earlier last month, and he came out and he said, hey, what the Trudeau government is doing, what the Canadian government is heavy-handed, they're spending way too much money on the recovery because it is not needed. And the left picked this up. The Liberals picked this up and said, hey, look, Erin O'Toole would have done what Stephen Harper is saying he would have done if he was elected. They would not have given you the benefits. They would have not have given you the CERB. They would have not given you CHOOSE, the Canadian wage subsidy. Does Stephen Harper need to, and I apologize for the Prime Minister for saying this, but shut up and just let Erin O'Toole run? Or does Stephen Harper galvanize the right to potentially get out and vote because he is still seen as that statesman?
Well, second verse, same as the first. The problem still lies with Erin O'Toole. I think why this hurts so bad is because there's been so much ridiculous dialogue around when Erin O'Toole fails, if he fails, when he fails, that Stephen Harper will somehow come back. I love this whole Conservatives believe the only way forward is backward. I said that last week. I think that's why this has so much salience. The former prime minister is welcome to say what he wants to say. And when his message that he spoke about on that podcast will have tremendous salience with the base of the Conservative Party who wants to look at the economic argument. But the effectiveness of being able to use Stephen Harper as a tool to say, this is what Erin O'Toole would have done. And that the reason why that's such an effective messaging strategy for the Liberal Party is because Erin O'Toole's not saying anything. There is, like, if we knew what he would have done, if we knew what he's going to do going forward, if we knew the vision that he held, if we had all of that due diligence in play, these messages wouldn't have that kind of salience. We wouldn't be having to tell the former prime minister to be quiet. We would just be able to say, listen, the former prime minister can say what he wants to say because he served as prime minister for 10 years and now can appear on whatever podcast he wants and hold his mug of Liberal tears all he wants to. But
He can come
I
on
just
our
think
show
that,
if he wants.
again, yeah, exactly. I just think the central challenge always comes back to the same thing, which is that we don't know what Erin O'Toole wants to do, what he will do, what he stands for. And I'm so frustrated that I've actually done the work. So next week on my podcast, I actually did the entire playbook. Like, this is the electoral playbook because I'm so frustrated that I don't see it. So this is what it should be. And so I'll be unpacking that and releasing that podcast next week.
Well, I saw I just saw the notes your father and you put together. Your father seems to be a little bit more prepared. So, for my listeners, that the link to Jennifer's podcast will be up in the show notes. So please check it out because it is a interesting look behind the conservative curtain, and it's always great to learn a little bit more and learn from a different perspective than your own. And while we can disagree on the two Michaels, we can still agree to be great friends. Aww.
That's right. One of us can be wrong about the Michaels, but we'll still
I
be
saw the biggest eye roll there. Wow. Wow. On that note, to my listeners, thanks for tuning in. To the listeners on the show, the links to everything will be in the show notes, so please hit subscribe. We will be back tomorrow, Saturday, July 31st, with another live episode with People's Party of Canada candidate for Calgary Skyview, Harry Dillon. So he'll be sitting down for our first live interview in a very long time. So he'll be in the booth with me in the studio. So please tune into that. Next week, we have two other great candidates. And I promised, I teased it on our social media page, that we have a great guest coming up here soon. We are still in negotiations with them. And I can tell you, you will not want to miss it because it's going to be some very fun lightning strikes that we have on that episode. So tune in tomorrow and next week for some great new episodes. And Jen will be back next Saturday or next Friday with us. So thanks very much, everyone. Have yourself an excellent day. Thanks, Jen.
Thank you.